I mean, in general, there has been this kind of criticism of him not selling his moves. And he spoke recently to David Schumark and Kazim Famuyide of the Masked Man show, or May Famuyide. Sorry for butchering your last name. Osprey was asked about the criticism of his selling, and he says, I just feel that there are different aspects in what people say with selling. If you understand and look at the backstory that I go through, who were the guys that I was training alongside? Okada, Ishii. You don't think at any point in those training sessions in Japanese camps where you'd land on your effing head and they'd be like, get up and just swing? If you don't have that small burst of energy before you're about to do something, they're going to get the upper hand and win. If people don't actually understand where I come from, think about this. Japan took a 22-year-old and taught him how to fight and effing tortured me. They beat the effing piss out of me. I got chopped so hard my eardrum burst. I say to all those people who say you don't know how to sell, you don't know the backstory, you don't know how I effing got here, you've never been in a situation where you've been in a moment where if you don't put your effing foot on the gas pedal, you die. To those people, I get where they're coming from, I understand, but if you pause your opinion for a second and take a wide look at the arena, they're standing up. You can't tell Picasso how to paint. Now, with that in mind, what is what do we think about that kind of style of wrestling, and how do you feel specifically about how Will Ospreay wrestles? And David, I guess I'll start with you and what your thoughts are about like what he said and like your general view on like that versus like let's say a WWE style match because they are different.
I see what he means. I think the more time he spends in the United States, the more he kind of gets the pacing of the United States. Like, I can see when people complain about his selling his matches, but then it's like if you watch like him versus Swerve, can't really complain. Or like
Mm-hmm.
him versus Danielson, no, like no complaints at all.
Mm-hmm.
Him versus MJF, like can't really complain about like those. Like I don't really see him as like a no sell guy anymore. Like I think that's more reserved for Naito and like more of the older New Japan guys. But
Do you feel like it was warranted at a certain point in his career?
it's warranted when the whole card does it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like for like when we went to Windy City Riot. It's like we kind of seen that every match, but we knew we were gonna see that every match.
Right.
But then it's like it goes over to AEW, and it might be half the card, but for whatever reason, because it's AEW, we kick and scream about it. And like sometimes it's ridiculous, but I don't really see like Will Ospreay do something that's ridiculous. Like like I couldn't imagine like him trying to kick out at one to like a Stone Cold Stunner. Like I don't think he's that type of guy.
Mm-hmm. But what about your own personal preference? Now, there was that kind of general commentary about his style, and we understand that New Japan has its own way. Same with like CMLL and Luchador Wrestling.
Yeah.
They have their own different versions. Do you have a preference in terms of like wrestling styles? Do you feel like the WWE style has just been kind of ingrained in what you like as a match? Do you have a preference?
I think my preference might be somewhere between WWE and AEW that I haven't like quite found because it's like, for example, like Swerve versus Danielson's probably my favorite match this year,
Mm-hmm.
and that was kind of a WWE match, but then a lot of people could argue that it was an AEW match. Other than it just being in the ring, I mean, it is two guys that were like WWE trained. Swerve spent a lot of time in NXT, you know, and but I kind of like I like AEW's main event pace,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't really think I know when selling can be ridiculous, and I think they're finding a good place where they don't do the ridiculous no sell. Like, yeah, it happens on destroyers and all that stuff, but it's been happening that way on indies and everywhere else in the world for probably the last 10 years.
Yep. Andre, same question, and just a continuation of like what I asked. Do you have any thoughts on like that style of wrestling, his commentary on it, your personal
Um,
preference?
well, I mean, I love that style of wrestling. It's always been really entertaining, and like, like I didn't. I'll be honest, I didn't really know too much about him until he came into AEW, and he's actually like one of my favorites. I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
But with that style of wrestling, um, yeah, but with that style though, like, no, I can't really say if it's my favorite because, like, kind of like to David's point, like the style between like WWE and AEW, like it's very gray. I don't know, like if I have like because I have like favorite matches, but like I can definitely agree too with the whole point of like Swerve versus um sorry, what's his name? uh
Swerve versus Osprey.
yeah, Osprey. Sorry, having a brain fart. That was actually one of my favorite matches too. Because they both had very good chemistry, because they both even though Swerve is he's got a lot of like aerial attacks too, like him and Osprey actually, they had I don't know, like what do you say? Sorry, I got brain fart today. But I would say that style of wrestling though, I mean, was that like it's like Japanese obviously because he was training, but like is it all it's also like carry on like luchador wrestling, right? In a way.
I mean, I feel like you definitely see it in luchador style wrestling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Because yeah. 'Cause I remember like what like it reminds me a lot of like the old WCW, like watching all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely get a good like vibe out of that. But I don't know. Like it's definitely got its place in wrestling. It's been around forever. Is it my favorite? No, but it's definitely entertaining though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, same question.
I think there's a spot like like creating like a match card top to bottom. There's always this various styles of wrestling. I don't think it has to be um homogenized like style like from A to B. It needs to be WWE style or AEW style or whatever or something in between. But I think having that variety makes it more exciting to watch because like if you're watching the same match every single it was an Osprey style match all the way through every single match. I mean, that would be boring too. You know what
Mm-hmm.
to kind of expect. But if you treat it kind of like in the way of like, oh well, you know what you're gonna get out of an Osprey match, and nobody else is gonna do that specifically on the card. I think it just comes down to the presentation of the overall card, and there's room for it. But me personally, I like that style a lot because it's fun to see a lot of fast movement. Um, and but he's also shown that he can slow it down as well, like the Swerve match. Good example where he can slow down the movement, have these fast moments within the match, and then still slow it down, and then just match breathe. So
In that match too, I felt like he sold pretty well too. Like he
yep.
didn't do that too much of that whole like yeah, because he slowed down a lot. I don't. He didn't do too much of that whole like not selling. I felt in that match as well.
Yeah, so I mean, no selling. I mean, I guess I didn't watch enough of his like New Japan stuff. I don't know if he was doing that a lot. And I don't. I guess I'm not paying attention enough to New Japan to be like, oh, he no sold that. I guess Naito was a good example because when you had that, was that the
Mox.
Moxley match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he definitely like looked like he was just kind of getting up from everything. It seemed like,
Yeah, get like just like a going through the motions kind of feel.
yeah, it felt kind of
Yeah.
phoned in. But I felt like in that case, it just wasn't even like speed. It was just kind of like, all right, time to freaking do the next bit or whatever.
Talking that.
Yeah, maybe that's his character. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's
It
kind of
kind of is.
like Orange Cassidy. I mean, to a certain degree, because Orange Cassidy does sell, but I mean, his part of his persona is that kind of like nonchalant, kind of like those light kicks and hands in pockets and that kind of stuff. And I guess that's just more part of his character. But like for me, I do think that I agree with you, Chris, that it's like part of your like personal preference, and I prefer it to be more of like a mixed bag. I don't think everyone should be in a WWE style. I think it's good to like intersperse, styles, like in terms of like the match card. Everyone should have like I want a Big Show, like a Nia Jax kind of person. I want like an Osprey or a Rey Mysterio type person. I would love like what we saw with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. It wasn't like the most technical thing, but it was just like a pure, basically a beatdown, with some really smart like moves and like the selling and all that kind of stuff. You really buy into that match at Bad Blood with a Hell in a Cell match. Like that
That's
was
a really old school Atlanta match.
Yeah, I mean, like if I'm talking about, if I want to say like, give me a good example of like how to tell a story in a match, I'd point to like that match. When it comes to, and I guess there's series of matches. There's 3 or 4 matches that they've had with the strap match and all that stuff. Definitely one of the best matches of the year in my opinion. So yeah, I mean I agree with Osprey to a certain degree. That like there's like its own style in place, and there is a logic to it. I agree with that. Like if you get like smacked around or whatever, I think your instinct is to immediately like try and fight and get back up. Although to be fair, like if you're in a boxing match or whatever and someone just freaking slobber, like just knocks you in the jaw, like you're not gonna immediately like flip back. You're gonna be like, oh crap, like I'm like leaning on a rope or whatever. You're not gonna immediately start doing like monkey flips, if someone actually socked you in the face. So, but yeah, but at the end of the day, I could also see it like it's wrestling, it's professional wrestling. Like we know it's scripted and all that kind of stuff. So I don't necessarily think it needs to be like consistent, like selling like the way that we think, like Hulk Hogan, for example, like a Hulk up. If someone punches you and you're just going like, he punched me again, I'm getting stronger. Like, is that realistic? No, but everyone likes it, like that's like it's part of his match. It's part of his gimmick. Kind of like
he learned that from Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cornet.
I saw a match of Hogan in Japan. He wrestled so different. He was actually really fast too.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
He was doing like missile drop kicks, but he would run into them. He would do like leg sweeps, and he was fast.
He knew how to chain wrestle.
What was that?
He knew how to chain wrestle, like a real technician out there.
Yeah, he was. He was
doing arm twist, one leg over the arm and flipping them and
real grabs.
Real grabs, baby.
I don't think I've actually seen a Hogan New Japan match.
I'll find it again. I'll send it to you.
Real grabs. It looks strange. It looks like AI made it because you've never seen Hogan do any of that.
It does look strange because you never see that. Yeah.
Maybe that'll be a podcast episode where I'm gonna give everyone an assignment where you have to watch a Hogan New Japan match, and then we'll just dissect it.
Or anybody like Western, like all the dudes that were big in WWE that went to New Japan for a second, like those moments. I guess you can make Chris Jericho's, the Hulk Hogan,
Albert,
Albert. Yep. What was his name?
Tensai.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah,
with his fake painted on characters.
Or I forgot what he was out there, but he tagged with Lesnar for a while.
He might have been Tensai back there too in New Japan. No, it wasn't just Albert or the Prince. Well, I guess that's Finn Balor.
He just came out with all the piercings.
I love when he was Tensai, people were still like cheering him as Albert and shit.
Albert.
Yeah, I mean that's a little cringy too. The same thing with like when Bray Wyatt, and I'll talk about this in the faction thing. People were calling him Husky Harris. I was like, like that's a little edgelord cringe.
We know what you were. We have to say.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm pretty sure I participated in it, so that's definitely cringe. And Facebook memory. So yeah, anyway, I guess we could now, speaking of the Wyatt family, and thanks for chatting about our wrestling style preferences and commentary, we're gonna Peace.